Agenda. If you'd like, we could, once, if she's not on yet, we could start with other business, site plan committee report, and then the minutes, and then by then she may be on. So we could work backwards tonight if you'd like.
Well, I've got to read that notice of electronic meeting too that the mayor wants.
That's true. Yeah, that may take a few minutes. So
we can. Hey, I'm not that slow of a reader.
Agenda. If you'd like, we could.
Is it? My clock on the wall just chimed 7, so I guess it's time to start, right, Vendeline?
Yeah, it's 7, so.
All right, let's go ahead and get going. She can catch up when she gets here. I'd like to welcome everybody out to Planning Commission meeting tonight. We're doing it electronically. The mayor has asked me to read the following notice of electronic meetings. In accordance with resolution number 2020-07-20R, it has been determined that conducting meetings of the Planning Commission with an anchor location such as the City Council chambers presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present there. The following are facts upon which the determination has been made. Utah has been in a declared state of emergency due to COVID-19 since March 6, 2020, a virus outbreak that has been recognized by the World Health Organization, federal, state, and local leaders as a pandemic. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, has stated that COVID-19 is easily spread from person to person between people who are in close contact with one another through respiratory droplets when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or talks. This virus can also be spread by people who are non-sympathetic. As reported by the Utah Department of Health, reported COVID-19 cases in Utah County continue to rise at a rate higher than reported rates for the state. Federal, state, and local authorities recommend that individuals limit public gatherings, wear face masks, and follow social distancing guidelines. It is difficult to anticipate the number of attendees at any meeting in order to maintain social distancing to comply with state-phased guidelines. Further, regardless of the number of attendees, social distancing measures for Planning Commission staff and attendees will be difficult to maintain in the City Council chambers. COVID-19 continues to pose an immediate threat to the health, safety, and welfare of the American Fork City residents. American Fork City can provide a way for the public to hear and view open portions of the Planning Commission meetings and to provide a way to participate in public hearings. For at least the next 30 days, all Planning Commission meetings will be conducted via electronic means. The meetings are broadcast, live streamed, and available at a later time at the following website. To make a public comment, email comments to Zoom public comments at afcity.net prior to 5 p.m. the day of the meetings for the comment to be read into the record. Please indicate in the subject line which items your comment refers to. That taken care of, we'll go ahead and we're going to change the agenda a little bit. We're going to start with other business, waiting for a couple of people to log in. Any other business do we need to be aware of at this time from any of the commissioners or the staff?
I'll just let you know that the City Council did approve the zone change for the property just south of the library at their meeting, or at their last meeting, and so we're looking forward to the Children's Justice Center moving forward on that site. That's all I have.
All right, anything else from any commissioners or anybody else for other business? Hearing no one speak to that effect, site plan committee report. Vendeline, what do we have coming up on our meeting the day after the election on the 4th of November?
Thus far, we only have one item. It's a condominium plat, just a very, very simple action.
And we still have a little bit of time. We might hear something more, but it doesn't seem like we're going to get too much now. The weather's going to change and it should slow down construction a little bit, hopefully.
Yes.
All right, moving on. Review and action on the minutes of the October 7th, 2020 Planning Commission regular session. Do I have a motion on the minutes for someone, please?
This is Ryan. I move that we approve the minutes from the October 7th Planning Commission session.
All right, thank you. I have a motion from Ryan. Do I have a second?
Second, Chris.
Second from Chris. Any further discussion on the minutes? If not, we'll take a roll call vote. Christine,
Aye.
Jeff,
Abstain.
Rod,
Aye.
Harold,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Chairman votes aye also. It passes with 5 or 6 ayes and 1 abstention. All right, we go back up to training and discussion on the Utah Open and Public Meetings Act, Section 52-4, and other legal considerations related to city planning. The city attorney online now.
I'm here.
All right, it's all yours, young lady. Give us some book smarts.
Book smarts, huh? All right, Gwendolyn, can you pass over so I can screen share?
It should be, if you share your screen, it should work now.
Yep. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so as many of you know, we have to go through this annual training. Just one of those formalities. We will try to get through it quick because frankly, this year, not a whole lot has changed. The annual training applies to all public bodies, including administrative, advisory, legislative, executive. So certainly Planning Commission is one of those bodies. The simple way to think of it basically is it's transparency. Everything needs to be open. All deliberations about items need to be open. There's not a prohibition on talking about items outside of a public meeting, but certainly if there's a quorum present, it needs to be open and transparent. The question is when does this apply? And anytime there's a meeting. So if we have a meeting, which basically is a quorum present, it doesn't have to be a meeting that's noticed up. If you have a quorum present, then the meeting has to be noticed up. It's if you run into each other at the grocery store and there's 3 of you there or 4 of you there, you cannot have a conversation about any issue that's going to appear before you for either recommendation or decision.
I have a question about the noticing. Are we kind of doing the same as the rest of the cities around about how we notice? I'm not sure if everyone does the little signs that we do on the vicinity of the property that will be on the agenda. And I'm curious if that is sufficient practically. I know that it's probably legally sufficient. I'm wondering if other cities do more to kind of notice things or.
So the notice is not just that though. The notice, sorry, let's see. The notice is posted on the city's website. It's also posted on the state's website for the open meetings. We have to have it published in a newspaper. And on certain issues, we have to post notice at the property. I don't know, Gwendolyn and Adam may be able to speak to it a little bit clearer, but I don't believe we post notice on the property for all issues. It's only those that require it.
No, what we do is, this is more of a courtesy, the notice. The mayor has requested that each item gets a sign at the property just to help, especially the immediate neighbors, to see that something is going on. We basically go over and beyond what we must do by our own municipal code and by state code.
Okay, great. Thank you. That answers my question.
And here's the required notice. We have to have it posted at the city office, Utah Public Notice website, and a newspaper. And then there are some issues that we also have to post at on site or close to the site, depending on the issue. But as a general rule, we don't have to do that. As Venlin said, we're doing that as a courtesy. Agendas, you guys don't usually have to deal with the agendas too much. Staff takes care of this, but we have to make sure that the item is being identified with reasonable specificity. The key on this point for the commission is they have to notice it up with reasonable specificity, which means we have to stay within that general discussion. So even on a discussion item, we cannot stray beyond that item. We have to stay to the item that's been noticed up. Anytime there's a formal discussion taking place, we need to have it noticed properly, and that includes placing it on the agenda with reasonable specificity.
What about changing the order of the agenda? Is there any legal repercussions to that?
No. Closed meetings doesn't necessarily apply to you, so we'll kind of skip over that.
Sure.
Yeah.
This is something I've always wondered with the agenda. If we have passed something in the agenda, but I have something that I feel like needs to be discussed, or maybe we just, I have another question about it, am I allowed to bring that up later in the meeting? And
yes, to a certain degree. To a certain degree, but that's also controlled by the chair of the meeting. So it's really it's up to him if we reopen the issue, because once it's been closed and moved on from, then really if he wants to allow it to be reopened, he can. It's been noticed up, but he doesn't have to.
Okay.
It wouldn't be a violation of open meetings for you to bring something up. It would be more a violation of the order of your meeting than open meetings issues.
I see.
Emails and text messages, there's nothing that prohibits emails and texts. In fact, you frankly can all be on an email chain emailing. The reason for that is because the transparency comes in the fact that that email is now public record. With that being said, it is my strong recommendation that we do not correspond back and forth on an item via email. I personally believe that doing so goes against the spirit of the law, even if it doesn't technically violate the law.
Does that apply to text messages also?
Yes, if you have a quorum present on the text message chain, you should not be discussing the specifics of any agenda item. And truthfully, with the Planning Commission, I would limit any discussion about any item with anybody via text message, because you certainly don't want there to ever be an issue of those records being grammar requested. Technically, those are records, and you don't want to have to deal with someone coming in and looking at your personal phone to see what city business has been conducted. So I would limit, if nothing else, I would limit your communication on issues, the discussion items, to email, but I would prefer you just do it in an open setting.
Sherilyn,
Yes.
there is a good example of this that just recently happened at the Salt Lake City School District. The school board, it was in the papers. I guess
Yeah.
they did a lot of messaging, text back and forth.
Yes.
And so.
And that's why I strongly encourage, because if nothing, even though it may not be a technical violation to discuss issues over email, like I said, it violates the spirit of the law without question in my mind. But the other thing is just public perception of it. Why were you having email discussions instead of discussing them on an open forum? It muddies the water too much. One thing about text messages and emails, though, you cannot do it in a meeting. So you cannot be sitting in a meeting texting somebody else about what they should say or what you want them to say. If you're in a public meeting, all communication needs to be done on the record. You can't be doing both at the same time. The biggest change is the COVID exception is kind of how I've classified it. So initially when COVID hit, the governor issued an executive order that expired. And because that was going to expire, the legislature passed essentially a change to the electronic meetings requirements to mimic what that executive order was. And we've followed it at this point. Essentially, if there's a reason that you can't convene in person, you can host an electronic meeting without an anchor location. It just requires the chair of the meeting to read that wonderfully long and extensive statement as to why you are not meeting in person and why there's not an anchor location. Really, outside of a pandemic, it
I think
Sherry
we've
Lynn
lost
flipped.
you.
Yeah, she froze up.
Yeah.
Cheryl, are you muted? We've lost your audio.
No, I think it's her internet connection. Because
So in this case, Vendolin, do you want to text her and let her know to
Yeah.
call back in?
Yeah.
Can't do that.
Yeah. She didn't say anything about staff.
Oh,
She must be using AF Connect.
hey, I've had good luck with that.
Oh,
Actually, the city messed me up. They fixed underneath my fence and cut my cable for less. That's why I had to go up to Kevin Barnes's house for city council meeting last week.
they haven't been too bad.
Well, I've had them about 7 years now, and they've only been without them 3 times. And like I said, this one last week, the city cut the cable, so it wasn't even AF Connect's fault.
Yeah.
that was fun. Sorry.
Welcome
Yeah,
back.
we can hear you now.
Okay, let's see here. One thing that I didn't discuss with council that I typically address with planning commission is the issue of public clamor. And just the importance of making sure that any decisions that are being made aren't being made on the basis of public clamor. The difference being I can come and complain, I don't want this constructed in my backyard. I don't like it. It's going to bring things to the neighborhood that I don't want. But unless there's a actual reason that they have a basis for it, you can't just say there's a lot of people here that are saying no, they don't want this in their neighborhood. There has to be a legitimate concern that can't be addressed. We see this most when we're talking about facility homes, the substance abuse treatment facilities and whatnot. It's critical that we look at the application, whether or not they meet the requirements of that application, and we ignore that public outcry that we often hear. But again, I think that our planning commission's done an excellent job. I haven't had a concern with the public clamor issue, but I just like to always put that little plug to make sure that we're remembering that, because sometimes it's hard to ignore, especially when it's your neighbors or your neighborhood. coming and saying, you know, I just don't want this here. Unfortunately, our hands are tied a lot of times, and we just have to look and say, do you meet code or not? So Adam, Vendeline, if there's anything else that you want me to address, I think that about does it for the standard open meetings training.
I think there are some of the planning commissioners have some questions that they would like to ask.
Anybody have any questions? Go ahead, please.
I have a question. Maybe you can just kind of help us clear up the difference in our minds on the agenda between legislative and administrative decisions, and does our code require public comment for administrative decisions? And you know, which ones are we able to take into account the public comment?
You can always take into account public comment if public comment is offered and received.
Right.
I would love to give you a simple explanation on legislative versus administrative, but it's not simple. It's truly convoluted sometimes. And frankly, you guys deal with both. I think the simple answer to that, without trying to make things too confusing, is exactly kind of how I started. Anytime public, if it needs to be noticed up for public hearing, it will be. Our staff will make sure of that. If there's a public hearing, and even if it's just a public comment that's received, you as Planning Commission can always listen and take that into account. It doesn't matter which action you're taking. That's really the simple answer. Is you can always consider public comment. We just have to make sure that the comment is being received for what it is, and if it's just public clamor, that you disregard it.
Okay.
Sherilyn, maybe you could comment just a little bit on our, we have, quite a few different zones, and there are some zones where the Planning Commission is the land use authority, where they would, I presume, mostly act in an administrative fashion. But
Yep.
most of the zones, they recommend to the city council, and then the city council approves an ordinance that enacts an overlay zone for each project. The GC2 zone, for example, SC1, all the large scale developments. Maybe, I guess I maybe already said it. The one is really mostly administrative in character. The other one, there's number one, the Planning Commission recommends more. In the end, there's always an appeal to the city council, and the city council really makes the decision in the end.
Yeah, as a general rule, most of the decisions that are being made from a legislative front, you're not making. Most of those are being passed off because council is the legislative body for the city. But as Vendeline noted, you do serve as the land use authority, and he's right. That's generally when you're serving in more of an administrative capacity. But regardless of whether you're the land use authority or you're a recommending body, you can always consider the public comment in making your decisions on those.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that we don't listen. It just means that we have
Right.
that we just have to be more judicious on sifting through the public clamor. If it's based in meeting the code, whatever code that's being applied, that's where we have to be very, very, very cautious, because we can't supersede that.
Correct. And typically your issues of public clamor are going to be the issues that bring the public clamor, for the most part, are going to be the ones where you're the final decision-making authority anyway. So if you have a significant amount of that public clamor, coming in, and even public comment in general, those are typically the issues that you're going to have to kind of sift through a little bit more regardless.
Sherilyn, would you address a little bit maybe on the fact about how we as individual commissioners can react or interact with the public, say a developer meeting down at the 7-Eleven or something? How do we handle meeting with a developer one-on-one or whatever? How does that work?
You can. I'll leave it to Adam and Venelin if they want to speak up in terms of what their recommendation is on doing it. We've in the past discouraged doing it, but I don't want to push that too hard because I know, as you know, a lot of council members will meet with them as well. The tricky part is if you're meeting with somebody to look at something or discuss something, you certainly can't commit to anything because you're one of the public body as a whole. And so I'm not a fan of it, to be honest. But I'm not going to say you can't do it because you can. It does make things it muddies water because then you get put in a position of you said this or you said that, and oftentimes it's not true.
Well, does it make a difference where we're appointed and the city council is elected?
No, it doesn't make a significant difference. Adam, you may want to chime in on that because I think it's more of a city policy than it is anything else.
What we've as long as I've been with the city, we've discouraged planning commissioners from basically having one-on-ones or conversations with various parties, whether it's developers, citizens with an application or whatnot. And because of that, as staff, we will not give out your contact information. Now, if they have other means of finding that, or if they live by you, that's up to them, but we will never give out your contact information. We have been asked before. Now, on the city's website, there are emails listed for the city council members, not for you as planning commissioners, and that's done intentionally so that you can be more of a neutral third party, weighing all sides, weighing the code, and then going from there. But we've discouraged that. And John, in the past, you've made mention where some have somehow found you and you've said, look, whatever you want to say, you can say it at the public meeting. And we'd recommend that that's kind of the course you continue to take.
Yeah, I know I've had several developers over the years. I mean, I've been here for several years and there's always somebody chases me down and wants to know about this, that, or whatever. And it just puts you in an awful bad position that, we don't have to report to the constituency because we're appointed to these positions, but it just puts you in a bad position when they try to get you off on the side one by one.
And that's why it's always been our position that our planning commissioners don't speak with developers directly. And that's always been the push. And it's easy to maintain that because we don't give out your contact information. But if you get approached by a developer, you can discuss stuff with them. I, again, encourage you not to, especially because you open the door for one, you open the door for all. And then it makes it more difficult for the city to say as a policy, we do not speak with developers. And that has been the policy, is to not have planning commission speaking with developers.
And that's a good decision. We need to stick with it. Okay, anybody else have anything for Sherilyn before we let her go? Go ahead, Venelin.
Maybe just a quick one. Spot zoning. Is there anything new on the legal end of that? It seems sometimes it's a concern, sometimes it's not.
Yeah, I think that one's one that we'll address if an application comes in. We'll kind of do a more thorough training on that if that issue comes up. I think some things change ever so often, and so I don't want to go too much in depth on it until we have an issue come up, because then we'll see what the law is at that time.
I have a question about, sorry, did I interrupt somebody?
Nope.
I have a question about public comment on virtual meetings.
Yeah.
So far, we have just been reading in their comments. Will that be the way we just continue doing it, or should we be allowing video into the meeting?
You are satisfying all the legal requirements right now. There's been discussion of different options to receive public comment, but at this point, the statute just requires that we have an opportunity. If public comment is going to be received, we have a way for that to be received, and we're doing that through email. So the Planning Commission is satisfying the law, but there's certainly other means that can be done. Frankly, the reason that we don't do live is because of the number of hacking Zoom calls that we've seen, and we don't, because they're live meetings and they're recorded live, we don't want the hacking issues, and that's why we're reading comments into the record right now.
So are the public given an option of whether they would like their comment read or whether they'd like to be patched in with a video?
No.
So that's kind of what my understanding was as well. We had a meeting maybe last month or something like that, where a city councilman was given the video link, and I felt like that was not what was allowed to the public for public comment.
I'm happy to discuss that further with you at another time. We certainly can discuss that.
Okay, I didn't know if that was allowed, that some people get video comments and some people don't.
No, we can discuss that, and I can discuss that with Adam and Vendelin as well.
We've had the discussion also, Christine, that was kind of an intimidation factor that is probably not going to happen again.
Good. I feel like every public comment should get the same amount of the same treatment from the commission.
Well, we felt that by having the city councilman be a part of a planning commission, it was kind of out of place because it kind of put the issue of intimidation down.
Don't want to. This was noticed up, and I'm happy to discuss it offline. But this was noticed up for open meetings, so let's just kind of keep the questions simply on the open meetings type of within that realm.
Agreed.
Sounds good.
What you're talking about, Christine, is something that a lot of other governmental agencies they're following a very similar practice in what and how they handle public comment. It's just because of the limiting nature of being online. There are certain things you have to take into consideration to try to manage it as best as possible. We're not trying to avoid transparency. It's the way we're trying to find ways where we can be transparent and still conduct our business.
Still be legal.
Right. There was another meeting as well where someone, a developer, didn't have their mute on, and it was disruptive, and it was hard to let them know that they were still, audible to all of us. But I felt like muting them, there's some moral implications there as well. So is there a recommendation on how we handle that?
I'll talk with Vendelin and Adam on those, because really those are issues for staff that's handling the mute button. So I'll talk with them, and we'll make sure if those issues come up, if they just want to reach out to me, we can discuss those further moving forward. Hopefully we don't have this too much longer.
Yes,
but we'll
we can
see.
hope.
Any other questions for Sherilyn before we let her go? One last chance, folks.
Well, I have another question, but I don't want to, if someone else has something, they can go ahead.
I have a question, but I think it's probably better asked offline, so I'll follow up later.
And Adam, you're more than welcome to give them my email address if they want to email me with questions they have.
I can do that.
So with affordable housing, is there a way for us to legally and appropriately incentivize or require a certain percentage of a development to address the affordable housing crisis?
I'm going to ask that you have Adam ask me that, and I'll work through him, only because I want to keep this limited to open meetings.
Okay.
But I'm happy to answer that offline. We need to keep this meeting limited to just the open meetings, since that's how it was noticed up.
All
Okay,
right, what-
so we're just talking about how open meetings are handled? Is that your question? Is that the subject?
Yeah, so this was just noticed up for an open meetings training. So if you have any questions on that, I'm happy to answer those now. But anything outside of that, any legal questions can always be asked of me as well. So you can grab my email from Adam. I'm always happy to answer legal questions that you guys may have.
Okay.
All right, one last call for any questions on the open meeting agenda. If not, we'll go ahead and thank Sherilyn for being with us and teaching us tonight. We're down to adjournment. I need a motion for adjournment, please.
This is Jeff. Move to adjourn.
All right, have a motion from Jeff. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Christine. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you much, folks. Thank you, Sherilyn.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sherilyn.
See you in a couple of weeks, everybody.
See you guys.
Bye.
Take care.
See ya.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.